just want to thank you all for being on this call today and wanting to hear a little bit more about some employee volunteer programs and hear it directly from some of the folks who are administering and helping to oversee those programs and some of the business that operate here in Hawaii. My name is Keone Kealoha. I'm the executive director of a local nonprofit, Kanu Hawai. Organization's been around since around 2007. And our mission is to really provide tools and opportunities for people to connect with one another, to take action that builds more compassionate and resilient communities across Hawaii. And part of that, carrying out that mission, is looking through the lens of service, which is really our local expression of aloha, giving back, volunteering, taking care of each other. And that's just something that's kind of ingrained in our culture, both Hawaiian, but just really just local style. And so we'd love to see that proliferate more, especially in our business community. And so we thought it'd be a great chance to hear from some of the folks who already have existing programs, so that maybe if you're a business owner or if you work within a business operating an employee volunteer program, you'll have a chance to kind of hear what other people are doing, some of the benefits, some of the successes and challenges that they have. And then on the nonprofit side of that, to be able to hear, what are businesses looking for in a nonprofit partner, and what are some of the kinds of opportunities that you might consider putting together so that you can partner with other businesses. So with that, I want to turn it over to Dylan Liu, who's going to be facilitating the gathering for us today. But just again, thank you so much for your time. And one last note of mention, aside from our panelists and their respective businesses, we wanted to thank the City and County of Honolulu for providing support to make this possible today.
Thanks, Keone. Aloha, everyone. My name is Dylan from Kanu Hawai. I'm the Marketing and Outreach Coordinator. And today we have wonderful speakers that I have the honor of introducing. So since we do have a full schedule, I'm going to get started with that. First up, in order of when they'll be speaking, Tsue from Hawaiian Electric. He's the Director of Community Affairs. And if you got the chance to read his bio, he has a very extensive and impressive resume. But now he oversees community outreach at Capitol and Masonite projects. He does customer education as well as community volunteerism and giving. Secondly, we'll have Aaron Stash calling in from Chicago. So thank you for your time. He's the Senior Manager of Social Impact Optimization at United and manages social impact strategy for the airlines. And lastly, we'll have Momi Akimseu, Senior Vice President and Community and Employee Engagement Director at Bank of Hawaii, as well as the President of the Bank of Hawaii Foundation. She'll be talking about their engagement initiatives like the Live Kokua Employee Volunteer Program and Giving Campaign. So Kurt will be on deck whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Dylan, and mahalo everyone for joining, and thanks so much to Kanu for hosting today's event. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna share my screen really quickly. Let's see here. So thanks for the introduction, Dylan. I'm Kurt Tsue, work in the Community Affairs Department of Hawaiian Electric. Hawaiian Electric, as many of you know, is the utility that serves 95% of Hawaii's 1.4 million customers, residents on the islands of Oahu, Maui, Hawaii Island, Lanai, and Molokai. So all but Kauai, essentially. We have 2,500 employees currently. And as one of the oldest local companies and employers in Hawaii, we really feel it's our responsibility to help make Hawaii a better place. And traditionally, we've long supported a wide range of community organizations and noble causes through our giving and our volunteerism. But really, we try to take, and we are taking a more focused approach to both our volunteerism and our giving. So just thank you so much for the opportunity to share with everyone today. At the beginning of last year, we began to more strategically apply both our giving and our employee resources towards overarching focus on resilience and sustainability. And so essentially what that means is we look for opportunities to support community resilience activities that are really specific to access to community lifelines. So as Keone knows very much so, as islands in the middle of the Pacific, we are all each other has in the event of emergencies. And when it comes to things like electricity, water, food, and all those types of resources, we want to support nonprofits and community-driven activities to provide those opportunities for our neighbors and our community members. And of course, sustainability is so important for that same reason. And what we mean by sustainability is focusing on efforts that promote education through STEAM, workforce development, and learning opportunities, and really preserving our natural and cultural resources. So those are the types of opportunities we try to leverage our people and our dollars to really support nonprofits and causes that are geared towards this, so that there can be greater impact. There are a lot of really good causes out there in Hawaii, and we wish we could support them all. But given the business that Hawaiian Electric is in, we're trying to leverage the expertise that our employees have with respect to our engineers, our environmental scientists, and look at how we can really support, again, community-driven nonprofits and activities in being successful in building capacity in what everyone does. So that's the reason why we try to focus our efforts and attention around resilience and sustainability. And so just really quickly, wanted to highlight our volunteer program. It's called People Power. And I really want to thank some of the team members that are on today's call in Hawaiian Electric's Education and Consumer Affairs team. They really have done a good job at designing a program that is employee driven. And the way we try to manage our programs is following these concepts of resilience and sustainability. We ask our employees what's going on in their community or the nonprofits that they're supporting, and how can they bring Hawaiian Electric into their community, into the nonprofits that they work with. And so it's really our employees that help to identify the types of activities that we open up more broadly to our broader base of employees in all of the service territories that we support. And so definitely, we really enjoyed getting out into the community prior to the pandemic, and have gone through a lot of evolution and changes in light of that. But ultimately, the volunteer program that Hawaiian Electric that leads internally is really driven by its employees. And we found there's great success in leveraging existing relationships that our employees have in communities, and then bringing the company along. And that helps us make stronger connections. And I think all companies can benefit from that. And Keone and Dylan asked some really good questions to tee up today's conversation. So there's so much to gain for companies to invest in their employees and identifying these opportunities in communities, because a lot of times things at the grassroots level, especially when good causes are being developed, it's hard to identify those, and it really takes being involved and directly living within those communities, or knowing people who are spearheading these causes to bring them to the forefront to get involved in. And so just thanks to our employees and the nonprofits that do all of this great work in communities. As all of us experienced with the pandemic, we all have had a big pivot. We weren't able to gather in the numbers that we have traditionally done for volunteer projects. We like to go out in the lo'i. We like to do stream cleanups, as many of the other companies on today's call. It's been a little challenging in identifying these opportunities, but we also use that as an opportunity to change our focus up a little bit too, with the economic situation growing to be what it is. A lot of families are struggling because of the impacts that the COVID-19 has had on our economy. And there's been a lot of nonprofits that have stepped up to really help and serve the needs that have really come to be most important right now in communities. And it essentially relates back to that concept of community lifelines. So we look for opportunities. We had to implement some safety policies about gathering and in-person activities, but we were able to continue to work with nonprofit and to help in other ways, mostly virtually. And it's primarily been through activities where we could support agents, nonprofits that help out kupuna, that help out students, and really one unique one that came about was some of the work that our team had partnered with for Catholic Charities. So a lot of nonprofits have been tasked with distributing the federal assistance funding that the government has been issuing. And the demand is so high that a lot of the nonprofits are really taxed to be really thin at this time. And so our team figured out a way to help nonprofits recruit our employees as volunteers to help screen and process some of the applications that these people that are seeking assistance in communities, and helping to expedite the process of them receiving these benefits. So this challenge did present some opportunity for us as well, but it certainly took its toll on our team, our employees, and how we volunteer out in communities. We have been very active in the past, and going back to pre-pandemic time in 2019, we would roughly have somewhere between 4,700 to 5,000 volunteers, roughly around that number a year, and in about 12,000 volunteer hours. And so when the pandemic hit in 2020, when a lot of the restrictions were put into place in March of last year, we saw a significant drop in of course the volunteers. We only had about 1,600 volunteers and 4,200 hours. And so it definitely caused us to think out of the box and be more creative. But another opportunity that came about from that process was we tended to attract a different type of employee. So because we weren't putting on the events that were the beach and the stream cleanup so much, for the example we shared with Catholic Charities Hawaii, we attracted employees that were more had more experience and maybe more fulfillment in doing more of the procedural type of volunteer work, the processing of applications and doing things using these digital and virtual platforms to connect to nonprofits and communities. So those were some of the things that we have learned as a result of the pandemic. And the needs out there are still great. We're very grateful to see the numbers starting to go down. And we're very much looking forward to a point when we can lift our safety guidelines and get back out into communities and start working alongside nonprofits and supporting the great causes that they're doing. But essentially, that's a quick summary of what Hawaiian Electric has in place with respect to volunteerism. We feel it is really important to what we do as our identity as a company. We all, of all the 25 employees we have, we all live within communities, and we strongly encourage our employees to help bring Hawaiian Electric as a company into their community, and that has helped the company in a great way in building relationships a lot more quickly. And this one example was some of the work that we've been doing out in Waimanalo, where we got introduced to a lot of the good nonprofits and the great grassroots community work by our own employees. And had it not been for them, we wouldn't have been able to identify the great causes that was happening within that particular community. So I mean, it's a different approach that maybe traditionally Hawaiian Electric has taken, but we found it to be a lot more meaningful in the relationships that we develop with nonprofits. And again, all the great work that people are doing, all the great community service work that nonprofits and organizations are doing in communities. So that's a quick summary I wanted to share, and I'll turn it back over to Dylan. But just thank you so much for the opportunity, and we are looking forward to the Q&A portion of today's discussion. Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you, Kurt. Yes, as you mentioned, we're going to have a Q&A at the back end of this meeting. So if you have any questions, either for a specific speaker or just in general, you can put that in the chat and we'll get to it after everyone is done. So next up, we'll have Aaron.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Dylan. Thanks to Kanu Hawai and Keone for inviting me today. Excited to speak on behalf of my United colleagues. My name is Aaron Stash. I am the Senior Manager of Social Impact Optimization at United Airlines. I am based in Chicago, but I manage all of our West region partnerships on the nonprofit space. As a airline employee, sometimes I think I'm in the nonprofit space, but that's a a story for another time. Let me see if I can get my screen going here. Can we see that okay? Dylan, can you, okay. Let me make sure I got the full screen. All right. So I hope everyone's familiar with United Airlines, but if you're not, some United trivia. We had our maiden voyage to Hawaii in May of 1947. We've been operating to the islands for 75 years, coming on this coming May 2022. We are the largest air carrier between the islands and the mainland. We have over 1,000 employees on the islands as well. And we're the only airline connecting Hawaii to Guam and many of the Micronesian islands. And another quick airline tidbit, in 1950, it took about 9.5 hours to fly from California to Hawaii. I checked today just to see what the timing was. It's about 5.5 from LAX to Honolulu today. And if you can see the screen, I think it was only $160 back in 1950, which actually in 1950, that was quite a bit of money. Today, I think it's a little bit more than that. So specifically about United's program, we call it our Every Action Counts program. And it's really the work that we're doing with our employees and how we serve our communities. In these areas, we focus on 4 main areas, as well as Kurt mentioned, reaching out to our employees to understand where they are and what areas of interest they have to volunteer in. So these 4 areas that we focus on in no particular order, but I'll read them here. Breaking down barriers and promoting inclusion. This is really our diversity, equity, and inclusion focus, not only with the organizations that we work with, but all of the nonprofit organizations that we partner with in every category, really understanding who are the folks that they're serving, who is on their board, what is the makeup of their membership, and how ultimately when working with these groups can United become better in our own diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. On the next piece I'll say is inspiring next generation of leaders. This is really our education focus. Most recently, we've actually geared this more towards education for future aviation careers. There are a number of aviation careers available today, but also going to be available in the near future with new pilots needing training, technicians, flight attendants, all the way to information technology, IT, cybersecurity. Myself, I've been at United coming up on 21 years. I've never worked in an airport. So there's all kinds of different opportunities, and those are really how we're reaching out to our communities and schools to really inspire them and prepare them for future aviation careers. The next is lifting up communities in crisis after disaster. Obviously, as an airline, we have a unique opportunity to bring goods and services and people to areas impacted by natural or man-made disasters. Throughout the COVID pandemic, United has been flying both doctors and vaccines around the world to support our communities. And when a natural disaster strikes as well, we really are able to mobilize our employees and get relief where it's needed the most. And then the last piece on here, really dear to my heart, I've spent the last 7 years of my career at United in our environmental sustainability team. And that last one is flying towards a more sustainable future. United uses a lot of jet fuel, and we recognize that we need to do better for the environment. We've actually set a goal to reduce our own emissions by 100% by 2050. So reducing emissions completely, not even related to carbon offsetting, but our operations and future technologies. And what that looks like in the community space as well can range from working with clean energy tech startups to, as Kurt mentioned, the beach cleanups, the stream cleanups, tree plantings, and things like that with different organizations. So just a quick snippet of some of the partnerships that we have today in Hawaii and globally as well. Thanks again to Keone for the invitation. We were happy to participate in this year's Volunteer Week, where I think we did about 9 or 10 different opportunities across 3 different islands with our employees. We had planned to have the Girl Scouts to the airport in Honolulu this month for our Girls in Aviation Day, which was this past Saturday. We did postpone that because of COVID, but we're looking forward to welcoming them back. And we have been a long-term partner of Conservation International for over 20 years. And so, with that, I think as Kurt mentioned as well, and I think a little bit of of us will start to repeat ourselves to a certain extent in terms of the great setup that Dylan and Keone prepared. What makes a good volunteer program? What are we engaged in? Things like that. I think, one of the questions about how we identify volunteer programs, absolutely, from Kurt's perspective, looking at to our employees and understanding where they are and what interests them the most, we actually developed a program we called Volunteer Impact Grants. And so we were encouraging all of our employees to volunteer anywhere and everywhere. And as they track those hours with any of the volunteering they do, they can become eligible to receive a grant for their charities. We're not paying our employees for the volunteering, but we're actually granting dollars to the charities that they're supporting. And so that's really been a way for us to not only meet our employees where they are and the interests that they have, but having a workforce that is very bound to the location that we work in. We all want our flights to depart on time, and so somebody has to be there in the airport all the time. So it's really difficult to get a group of 100 people to do any one activity in any location. So, our typical volunteer activations are 10 to 20 people that we spread out as much as we can so that we can keep our operation going. This volunteer impact grant really lets our employees work on their own time and then also reward the charities and the nonprofits that they're most passionate about. In addition to that, as I mentioned with the 4 pillars that United focuses on, this is really where my team on the corporate side looks to nonprofit organizations that fit within United's business goals. So we have our own diversity, equity, inclusion goals, we have environmental goals, we have the ability to transport logistics for disaster relief, and we have a goal of increasing our career pipeline. And so that's how we identify nonprofits that we work with. And ultimately, if there's an overlap between the organizations we work with and the organizations our employees are most interested in, obviously that's a win-win for everyone. So we definitely work with those folks and want to encourage more of those nonprofits and more of our employees to come forward and understand really kind of how we make those decisions so that they can better help us find other organizations. I mentioned kind of some of the success pieces. I think one of the challenges, obviously we've all been challenged with COVID. With our team globally, we've been working as frontline employees throughout the pandemic. And so we were actually some of the first volunteers to come back to organizations as they opened up their doors back to volunteers. As an example, in Houston or in Denver, I think our team had more time on their hands because folks weren't flying. And so we actually started volunteering at the Denver Food Bank on a monthly basis. In the Houston area, when the food bank's refrigeration system went down, we basically ran the Houston Food Bank out of United's cargo facility for a number of weeks so that they could repair that system. And so our employees are really out in the community and reaching out as much as possible. We've also found some of the virtual volunteering activities have been really interesting. We partner with the Smithsonian Institute where we're actually doing transcriptions of historical documents, which is really exciting that you could actually do via a virtual Zoom session. We had a virtual volunteering session with my team of 20 where we were doing transcriptions for the Smithsonian Institute and really just kind of sharing the stories that we were reading about as we were doing that volunteer activity. Really interesting. And I think, as I page through some of the questions and tips and advice, I think, what's really been helpful, again, to echo what Kurt said, is really understanding what our employees' interests are and how we can further that. We recognize that employees want to be more involved in the community, and they want the companies that they work for to have a purpose, to stand for something and to give back to the community as well. We've actually done research that shows that our employees that are volunteering and participating in these activities are more active, they're more engaged, they're happier to be working at United because of the participation that they've had over the years. So just a few of the things, happy to get to the Q&A, and thank you all again for inviting me today.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, lastly, we're gonna have Momi. I'm gonna share my screen.
Thank you, Dylan. Aloha and thank you everyone. Good afternoon. Mahalo for allowing me to share time with you today and to talk about our Live Kukua Employee Volunteer Program. Next slide. Bank of Hawaii. We are a financial institution and we proudly have been serving the state of Hawaii and the West Pacific for 125 years next year. And our mission is to create better tomorrows for our employees, our customers, and our community. And we do that through many different ways, through philanthropy, volunteering, our people leadership serving on boards, through serving as advisors and helping with youth and education, and just our leadership overall in helping to identify community needs and being advocates for this place. Next slide. So giving back to our community is part of what we do. It's part of our DNA, helping to Malama Hawaii. We care very much about this place that we work in and that we live in. We want it to be sustainable for the next 125 years. And so one of the ways that we do that, next slide, is through volunteerism and our Live Kukua volunteer program. And many of our Banco Blue Crew volunteers participate as volunteers and go out and help our community. And they experience the power of helping and the privilege that it is to serve. Again, many of our employees are Blue Crew members. They serve on boards. We're able to make available individual opportunities. So for example, making sure people know that the blood bank needs donors, especially now, and what types are in particular need. And so we make sure they know where they can go, or we host drives pre-pandemic in our facilities. We also make available opportunities for teams to participate in volunteer service and also organize large-scale efforts so families, friends, and even keiki can participate. Next slide. So Kurt and Adam, they all talked about some of the benefits, and I'll just punctuate that as well. I think key is that our employees are able to learn firsthand about the needs of community and experience for themselves the power of the nonprofits and the work that they're doing to make this a better place. And they can understand individually and collectively the impact they can have to be stewards, to change behaviors, and again, to help Malama Hawaii and how they can kukua. Another key benefit, and it's been touched upon by other presenters, is the power of employees coming together. Our employees are literally able to get outside and brush aside work. You know, like the big organizations, that's United and HICO, they're all over the place in branches, in Kapolei at our call center, they're in our tower, but we can come together in fellowship when we malama together. And that is powerful. It allows us to build relationships, to go deeper, to have that camaraderie. And we believe it makes for happier employees who are more engaged, passionate, and productive. On the slide here are just examples of the range of activities that we have made available. Hundreds in the low E, helping to Malama Aina. On the top, helping at Kahuiki Village to make sure that people here can have safe haven and homes that they can live in. On the bottom, during the pandemic in early April, we got a call from our partner, the Institute for Human Services. You all remember that it was really hard to get supplies. They had received funding from foundations, from many organizations, but like us, they couldn't get supplies and they were in desperate need. So Connie said, "With Bank of Hawaii kukua and let's do a drive. I know people will step up to help." And boy, they did. We were open 2 hours at 4 closed branches. We did it safely, masks. Most people just opened their trunks and we took things out, but this was a Bank of Hawaii employee. And they brought toilet paper and paper towels and wipes. And I was just in awe at the generosity and aloha. We also, like other people have mentioned, have pivoted during COVID. And to the top right, we helped at Susanna Wesley, which is a community center in Kalihi Palama. And we help people to sign up to receive Section 8 help and also provided help at Catholic charities. So again, those federal funds were made available, and the nonprofits needed help to put people in the application stream and make it possible for them to receive funds. And then on the bottom, we help Kukua and provide laptops so kids could learn virtually and continue to receive education. Next slide. So I'm going to move now to some tips for success that each of you can use in your volunteer programs. The first tip is create that culture. You're on the call and you're already halfway there. That means you're interested in activating that commitment, or it's been dormant and you want to come back. Just do it, like Nike. And there are many ways that you can pivot in the pandemic. Again, we've explained some of that to you, and you can do it safely as we're looking really responsibly. Is this an open space? We're looking at really smaller numbers, and we're making sure that we're abiding by all the health regulations to do volunteering in this time. Build the brand. We established our Live Kukua volunteer program, and it's also the name of our employee giving campaign. And we created the Banco Blue Crew with blue shirts out in the community. What it's so powerful is when you're putting on that t-shirt and you're part of a team and you're part of something together to do better. And that's powerful. On our communications internally, when we're PAL with an opportunity, all of the feedback is awesome. So proud to be Blue. Way to go. Good job, Blue Crew. Build that brand. People, it's inclusive. It'll bring people together and knows that this is what you stand for. Embed volunteerism and layer it in your organization. You may be a very small organization, and that's fine. You can still, like I said, you can volunteer by talking about the need for blood donations. 1 pint that donated saves 3 lives. Maybe you can pick your annual anniversary, and that's the day you're incorporated. And that was 1 more year that you've been in service, and you want to kukua your community so you can rally around. And maybe you're in Ala Moana, and maybe you can go clean the beach at Ala Moana Beach Park. So it's really easy. It doesn't have to be huge, but something that even a small organization can do and layer it in. We know Dylan because Dylan was an intern at Bank of Hawaii. And even in our student programs and our professional leadership programs, we make community service part of the curriculum, despite the fact that we have that cohort for only 6 to 8 weeks. And our interns have to research needs, they need to plan it, and they spend their weekend cleaning and doing good for Hawaii. And then socialize it. When you're done, talk about it at work. Learn what they like. What would they like to do next? And on social media, tell people what you've done. We care about the environment. We care that people like Alice have food on the table and that you went to help at the food bank. Tell us. That'll give you eyeballs for future volunteers and open up opportunities where you can volunteer. Next slide. So where do you go? A lot of people have talked about that. Look to the source. Again, the community now more than ever needs kukua. Food shelters, food drives, taking care of environment, helping with these nonprofits that have funds to give to people, but don't have the resources to hire staff because their funds don't allow for that. That's where you guys can step in. You can call from your phones if you're working from home, and you can help make that difference. Look to your values. What do you stand for? Kurt talked about that, Aaron talked about that. What is it that you stand for, and align there? What are your employees interested? Do a lot of them surf? Cleaning beaches makes sense, right? What's your line of work? What are your partners doing? Start there. Take advantage of awareness and celebration months. It's Native Hawaiian History Month in September. In a few days, it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and it's also Pride Month. You know, everyone's busy, but maybe if you pick a couple of these milestones, then you can rally against that, and you can participate in a virtual walk, or you can donate clothing that would help women receiving medical care. Again, use that as markers so that you actually do something and stay active. And don't forget the opportunity to educate and inspire. I think what most inspires me is when our employees see and learn, and we open their eyes to what's been in the backyard and the power of helping. So an example, maybe about 7 years ago, we took our Blue Crew to Pai Oheia. Many of the bankers were working in towers, we're working in branches, and working on weekends because branches are open, have never been to Kaneohe and in that fish pond. And they were blown away. And I was so proud of our employees in the blue crew, in the water, in the rain, and volunteering, and the power and the beauty they saw in passing rock to rock, employee to employee, and knowing that we were building a fish pond that was going to help generations and provide food for sustainability was amazing. So we took that and we then taught them about the ahupua'a and took them to Kakoaivi and the Lo'i, and then all the way to Papahana, where they learned how everything flows, about the ahupua'a and the power, how everything is interconnected, and what we need to do to take care of this place. Next slide. More examples of pictures and I'm sorry, of work that we've done. And you can see it's not all, 2,000 at Bank of Hawaii or hundreds at Bank of Hawaii. These are small things, easy. We helped Magic Island to paint the sidewalks. We helped paint park benches. It was important. Many of us spend a lot of time there. Again, if you have a business in the community, you can do Pauhana Friday, get some bento, get some brooms, get some trash bags and pick up trash. Easy peasy. You can take care of our beaches. Bring keiki, bring family, learn about the effects of microplastics and do better for the future. On the bottom, Taylor, helping at IHS, the Institute for Human Services, and providing financial literacy classes to keiki living there. On the top right, our pets are beloved animals and they have needs too. So we participated in helping to have a drive for pet needs, and that was a fun one. Everybody wanted to go and take care and play with the pets. And then lastly, our partners at the Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement. They reached out to us during Pop-Up Makeke last December when it was going gangbusters, and they needed help to help ship supplies. They didn't have a huge Amazon warehouse that you see on TV. They had a small one in Kapolei. We rallied, we went out, we tried to make sure that all of you got your gifts on time. Many of them were Native Hawaiian artisans and products that were supporting our local community. Next slide. So next piece, hyper focus on the employee experience. When you have a volunteer effort in mind, get all the details. How many volunteers do you need? What do they need to bring? What are they going to be doing? Where are they going to park? Many of these places require you to sign waivers, not to be scared, but it's just sharing that you're going to do this and this kind of work you're going to do. Get that all done ahead of time. Provide emergency contact information in case people are lost or people are late. And are kids allowed to come? Know what to bring. You don't want to go where you're thinking you're going to help clean up a school and there's not enough brooms or mops for people and they're just sitting around. So take care of the details, create a great volunteer experience. Always be mindful and sustainable. Always leave the place better than when you arrived. Make sure you take care of your opala. Really encourage water bottles and not the use of plastics. That's kind of going against the whole part of taking care of this place. And bring coolers of water. That's what my team does, and fill water bottles. You're going to have to bring extra water bottles in case people forget. But again, don't contribute to what's the challenges that Hawaii is facing. Always have a go-to kit. That's what my team does. Everyone has half of their trunk already filled. You have duct tape, zip ties, Sharpies, extra waivers, extra blue crew shirts, all kinds of things, towels. And in this time of COVID, sanitary, napkins and wipes and masks. Have it ready to go because let me tell you, everything will be used at a voluntary event. They've got wind, you got all kinds of stuff. And crew provisions. Make sure you communicate, bring water, that they have something to eat. If you have a budget, provide low sugar snacks. Fruits are really easy. You can eat a banana, you can eat a tangerine and take it with you as you're hiking up a mountain. And if you have a budget, provide lunch in eco-friendly containers. And they'll love you because hard work creates hearty appetites. Next slide. And so for nonprofits looking to seek volunteers, get social, promote what you're doing and why you need help, share your why and your needs. People will rally. We're always looking for ways that we can partner, bring in new partners and help. And reach out to your current partners and supporters. And maybe they can help you to malama and do what you need. we want to go beyond just transactional or providing a grant. We are all in and want to help amplify and advocate the work you're doing. And part of that is providing the sweat equity and being there. Another good tip is create opportunities. Malama Mauna Loa, Pai Pai, they have scheduled community service days. So if it's daunting to create something, then just look on their calendars, and there are many more that you can just go. It tells you very clearly what to bring. They're safe, they're outdoors, and a small number can do it and a large number can do it. So I would go there. Next slide. I have a clip, it's 1 minute, that I can just show you something that we did pre-pandemic and partnering with Hawaiian Airlines and Sustainable Coastlines. Cannot hear.
News at 10.
5 Oahu beaches are cleaner today thanks to Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii and a team of volunteers.
More than 900 people from Bank of Hawaii as well as Hawaiian Airlines joined local community groups and partnered with the nonprofit organization to clean beaches and coastlines of trash, debris, and microplastics. 5 beaches on the windward side cleaned up were Waimanalo Beach Park, Bellows, Sherwood, Kaupo Bay, and Makapu'u.
Beach is really dirty from all of the hurricanes that have just passed by, and this is trash that's not from us.
Working with Sustainable Coastlines, we've all been able to learn more about the marine debris that's washing up upon our shores, the microplastics, and I think all of us will be able to take home what we can do as individuals so we can be better stewards of the land.
Bank of Hawaii and Hawaiian Airlines also made $5,000 donations each to Sustainable Coastlines Hawaii.
All right, I'd like to close by saying mahalo to all of you and to Kupu for this opportunity with Olelo Noeau, or a Hawaiian proverb. E kua hui like I ka hana. Let everyone pitch in and work together. We look forward at Bank of Hawaii to helping to mālama Hawaii. Mahalo.
Thank you, Momi. All right. Thank you to all of our speakers. That was great. And thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. So we're going to use these last few minutes for a Q&A. If you have a question, please put it in the chat. You can direct it toward a specific speaker, or it can be a general question.
And I also know that we may not be able to get to all the questions depending how many are asked. So we'll try to make sure that we capture those and share those with the presenters today. And if you did share your email with us, we could be happy to share any answers that they might be able to provide beyond the meeting today if we don't have time for all those. While people are putting some questions in, there was kind of something that got touched on that I wanted to put out there just to get feedback from the presenters today. You mentioned, working through your employees to connect with local organizations and community groups. And I know on the community group side of the fence, it's like, how do we find out where the employees are? How do we connect to the folks that work for you with thousands of employees, between all of your companies? We might not know anybody, but we really feel like we'd like to. Is there an opportunity to connect with your employees so they could at least learn about the work that maybe some organization is doing that might be right in their backyard? And that's really for anyone. Anybody can answer that one.
Sure. People can connect with me and we can share internally. Again, there are opportunities for Community Service Day, and we could pull together a committee, and we're looking at different opportunities. My team helps organize the requests that come in, and we really do try to make ourselves available. And then going back to the awareness months or celebration months, if there's something that's in line with that, we would do articles. We do a lot of education about bringing what's happening in the community in, and if it's around a focus area about needs, we're definitely able to provide that information and make it available.
Yeah, same for me, Keone. I mean, I'd be happy to serve as an initial point of contact, but if there's any specific areas within the company, whether it be our operations or any other types of services that we might offer as a utility that might be of interest, please do reach out and we can make those connections. And for those, again, nonprofits that do know employees directly in communities, that's another great way to connect with the people that you know. Like you, a lot of people say, "Oh, I know somebody that works at Hawaiian Electric," and that can also be a resource, and we can stay connected through those employees as well because you know them. And I think that's super important when we're building these connections, is leveraging who you know and then having them bring the right people in, the right resources to make those connections and to do the great work that everybody is doing.
And I would echo that as well. Feel free to reach out to me. The only thing I would add maybe is on the nonprofit side, simply asking your existing volunteers, do they know if their companies have matching programs or if their companies are looking for opportunities? I would say there's often times where we're not always, as much as we'd like to say we're communicating and everybody's aware of our programs, I'm sure there are folks out there who aren't. And if you're able to ask them more about their companies, it'll also have them reaching out to our groups and to find the folks within their own companies that might be able to support those groups more.
Great, thanks for those insightful answers. Dylan, did you find any questions in there that you wanted to put forth?
We have a question from Bernard asking, do the programs allow employees to volunteer during company time? And if so, what's like the max hours or what are your limitations or restrictions?
I can take, maybe I'll start and then turn over to Aaron and Momi as well. For Hawaiian Electric, we do not have a limitation on how much people can volunteer. And we actually have a handful of volunteers that like to sign up for almost all the opportunities that we offer, which is great. And we try not to turn anyone away, but we do have some events that do generate a lot of interest. And so in those instances, we have the benefit of sometimes having to randomly select volunteers for projects. And this again, of course, was pre-COVID, but when we had those larger event types of gatherings, our employees, we have a mix of management employees and bargaining unit employees. And unfortunately, our bargaining unit side, they're really restrictive in terms of having to perform on the clock work because it's critical services that they provide. These are our line operators and the people who run power plants. And so there isn't as much flexibility there. So majority of their time is spent outside of working hours. Within the management side, there is some flexibility. I think it's really dependent on the director or manager of that particular area. I think the main thing is that the work can continue to get done because we do have a handful of employees that have been mentoring high school students during the workday, and this is around their regular work, and this has been helped by the virtual opportunities that are out there. But students who are doing community service projects or science or engineering type of projects, STEM related, those are good opportunities for our employees to make those connections within schools. And we also try to line up, we all have graduated from a high school, most of us within Hawaii. And if there is an opportunity to connect an employee with the high school they graduated from, even more so a positive experience for both the students and the employees. So we do like to encourage those opportunities, but it is a little bit different. Long answer to this question, but because we do have a bargaining unit section and a merit side, those are managed a little bit differently. But in terms of how we count volunteer hours and document it, it's only the after hours volunteer hours that are documented and that are reported publicly.
I would echo that same on our workforce, that we're split. The one thing we have done is try to bring opportunities to the airports as best as we can. So if it's a Red Cross kit packing or amenity kits or different things that we can do with our employees at the airport, it's been a great success to kind of break through the folks who aren't able to kind of take the morning off because they work in the office environment. And I think our volunteer grants is really how we've tried to solve that as well, to be able to award employees when they do spend their own time out in the community.
Echo the same. We have the same with exempt and non-exempt employees. And so for the issue of fairness, it's really at the discretion of the manager. Most of our initiatives are nighttime and on the weekends and on holidays, which really does show the commitment to volunteering. With the pandemic and many Bank of Hawaii employees able to work from home, that creates different opportunities that, again, with the approval of the manager, that they can partake in and help people to apply online, et cetera.
And I know we're getting to the top of the hour and kind of our end of our time today, but we will, if folks are interested, we'll make sure that we get the correct contact information for each of the presenters that they would like to share, and then we'll make that available for folks that were on the call today. And then I would say if each of you would like to say kind of any closing thoughts or words that you'd want to leave with folks before we wrap it up today, maybe we could just kind of go in the order that you presented in, starting with Kurt.
Well, thank you, Keone. And just yeah, I would say the one key takeaway and the theme that in all of our presentations is that we've all learned through our various experiences that employee driven is really the way to go, because again, we all live and are members of communities and families and are graduates of schools. And so I think in Hawaii, it presents many different unique opportunities for us to make more meaningful connections in the work that we do as companies and the great work that nonprofits offer to communities and those in need. And I think not more now than ever, with needs being so great in a lot of different spaces, there's a lot of opportunity out there for businesses and companies to get involved. So thanks again, Keone, for the opportunity.
I would echo those thanks as well. I think the last thing I would leave folks with is that we definitely know that our employees want to be out in the communities, and we want to provide that opportunity because we know that it makes them better employees. Ultimately, it makes, especially in the service industry, they're more excited about their employer because of the work that they're able to do in the community, whether that be on their own time or on the company time, and any way that your companies can enforce that or reinforce that and provide opportunities for employees, you're just going to reap those rewards as well. So thank you again.
I think everyone said it best. If you were looking to do more, just do it. The needs are great. I think you'll find that people will respond within your organization, and your partners have to be careful because we're still in the pandemic, but we can get creative, and this is where innovation happens. I know someone asked about long-term commitments. You know, previously we've every Sunday, or I'm sorry, every weekend help serve food at the shelter. So we do that. We have dedicated volunteers that are willing to do that. Things are all kind of wonky right now, but let's stay connected. And thank you all for your time today. Mahalo.
Yeah, thank you all. Thanks to the presenters and their respective businesses and their insights and information, and to everyone that was on today to hear, kind of gain from the insights of experience. And hopefully, if you're interested in setting up a new program, or if you're interested in learning more about how to carry out aspects of your program, Kanu Hawai is here. We are a technical resource for you to support your volunteer programs. It's one of the areas that we engage with the community around. We just feel it's our kuleana to help support people connecting with their community as much as possible, and helping our communities to thrive and be safe and just amazing places. So Dylan, any last words for you as a facilitator today and kind of employee?
The last thing we want to share is that we have a Google form. I put it in the chat. And I know a couple of people were asking about getting contact information and staying connected with one another. So that's one way we can do that. And then I can share out the information if you are willing. But other than that, no. And a big mahalo to all of our speakers, Kurt, Aaron, Momi. Thank you for your time. A personal thank you for your communication throughout these last few weeks and for helping create this great event. And thank you so much to everyone who joined.